So yesterday we learned we're on Zion Amud Base. We started Zion Amud Base 7b, and we spoke about the first thing we spoke about was if you're kavei amakim l'tfilasai, if you establish a place for your tefillah. And one of the questions, I wish Howard was here because he asked the question. But one of the questions that we asked was, what's so special about being kavei amakim for your tefillah? What's so great about establishing a place for your prayer? And the truth of the matter is, the Gemara mentioned it not on the previous page, on page 6. The Gemara did also talk about. The Gemara also talked about being kavei amakim. It says if you establish a place for your prayer, then Elokei Avraham be'ezroi, Hashem is the God of Avraham, is going to help you and save you, because we see Avraham established a place and so on. So there was a previous Gemara about this. But the question is, so what is so special about establishing a place of prayer? So yesterday, David mentioned a reason that I didn't see, so I'm not familiar with it, but it sounded very interesting that if you have a place of prayer where you sit always, you always have a set seat, you're showing Hashem that you know your prayer is not, you're humble before Hashem, and your prayer itself is not strong enough to really break through the heavens, but because your place, the place where you're davening is established, that is going to, so it's an act of humility that you're acknowledging that your prayer is really not so valuable, but because you have a set place, I think I'm repeating it correctly, David. Somehow it's an act of humility, and because you have this you're recognizing that the place that you're davening in, that is somehow helping your prayer. So that is the reason for establishing a place for prayer. Now,
so there's two aspects. There's that, and there's the opposite, which is a person who feels, gee, I could pray any place in the whole shul that I want because I'm so. That's a mark of haughtiness.
Right, my prayer can work anywhere. Right.
Right, and I don't need the tranquil mind of a set place.
Okay, so I didn't find that. It sounds like an interesting reason, and as I mentioned, I did not find it in the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. I looked up. I think that's what you quoted from. It doesn't say that reason. It does say that the reason to have a person should have a set place in shul to daven, or he should also establish a set place. A person should have established a Beis HaKnesses, which he davens in regularly, and a set place for his prayer. And within 4 ames is considered that place. So as long as it's within the 4 ames, 6 or 8 feet, and it's good if it's next to the wall. And he shouldn't stand or sit in davening next to a rasha. And when he davens in his house, he should have a set place in order that his household members do not They don't confuse him. They don't affect his prayer, affect his concentration, ruin his concentration. So it sounds from the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch that the reason is, in order not to be, if you have your set place, sort of like you won't get affected by what's going on around you, because you have your set place where you're machaven. I found a number of other reasons as well, but in the commentaries, Manny, did you want to say something?
Rabbi Smith, maybe the wanting a set place is our desire to emulate what Hashem wants, because he wanted a set place for his presence, for the Shekinah. And in order to be close to Hashem, one of the ways of doing that is to emulate his midos that he expresses.
Yeah, it's very, very nice. It's a little similar to the reason that we mentioned yesterday that Hashem, established a set place for the karbanis and our prayers in place of karbanis. But I like your twist a little, that it's exactly emulated, just like Hashem wants a set place for his Beis Hamikdash. That we should have a set place. The very, very nice insight. Again, the Torah and Shulchan Aruch say that our prayer is supposed to be in place of the karbanos, and the karbanos needed to have a set place for, they needed to have a set place for the, for each of the activities that were done in the Beis Hamikdash. But I think, but your pshat it sounds very nice. Okay, so let me just go through. There's a number of explanations here.
I saw something else in a number of places that mentioned the Makam Kavua. They didn't mention the source as the Karbonis. They mentioned the source is that Avram Avinu said that he went to the place, and that's
that's a Gemara. Place. Yeah, we learned that Gemara. It's a Gemara. We learned that.
Okay, I thought it was from Torah, from Chumash.
The Gemara quotes it on the previous page and brings that pasuk. So it's good. You're remembering.
My memory's not. I was going to say my memory's not that good. That's why I'm remembering that we didn't remember it. That I didn't know it before.
It's good. It's good. Very good. So so that's a previous Gemara. Now the Rashba says a reason that. When you have a set place, you go specifically to that place to daven, it's part of your preparing to stand before Hashem. Meaning that if you can't, when you have a guest, let's say, that's important, you prepare your house. You do something to prepare to be ready. When you're going to speak to someone who's a big scholar or some, a very knowledgeable person, you prepare yourself to know what you're going to ask, what you're going to speak about, what you're going to, be discussing. When you speak before Hashem, it says the Hasidim used to prepare themselves for an hour before they would daven, because they would think about they're going to be standing before Hashem and think about the greatness of Hashem and so on. And that's what we're supposed to do before we daven. We're supposed to prepare ourselves. So one of the ways of preparing yourself before davening is to have the established place to daven, and by going to that place, that's part of your preparation to be able to have in mind to think about Hashem. You're doing an act. You're not just haphazardly just a prayer. Okay, let me do my chakras now. You're actually preparing yourself, making an established thought to that you're going to be davening now, and now I'm going to go to my place where I normally daven. So it's part of your preparation. The second thing is that second thing the Rashba says is that if you have established place, you won't be lazy. You're going to be more consistent with your davening. Your davening is going to be more real. The Meiri says that if you have a set place, you'll be able to concentrate better because you established the place. That'll be easier for you to concentrate. It'll make it less interruptions. Less worries because you have your place established. It'll be a better kavanah in your davening. And then there's a Reb David Arma that says that it's in order that if you have one place, it looks like you're davening to one Eibishter. If you jump around, it looks like maybe you're davening to two different to different gods. Now the Maharsha says an interesting thing. Maharsha says very interesting. He says that there is a Gemara that says, if you want to get smart, you should maybe face south when you daven. If you want to get rich, face north. And what that means is that there's different energies that Hashem gave to the different directions to certain blessings. Now, if you really want to daven to the Eibishter on the highest level, So you want your prayer to be heard. So the Maharsha says that there's a great milah to just daven to the Eibishter. Don't rely on these extra elements, and by doing that, you're kivei makom l'tfilasai. So it says your enemies fall before you, and so on. And so that's the idea of not. In other words, the benefit of davening in one place means that you're not relying on any of these extra energies. You're simply davening to Hashem Himself, the essence of Hashem, and not to any of the avenues, so to speak, to get certain blessings.
Rabbi,
yeah.
I wanted to point out for a second on 7b Zion, that on the bottom, of course, it's talking about Ozve Torah, but it does say also, which is interesting, it says the Samti Mokom La'ami Yisrael, and then again it mentions the Samti Mokom La'ami Yisrael. It could be referring to something else, but it could also be derived that Hashem is placing a place for, could also have some inner meaning that he wants us to be in one place. On the right-hand side on the bottom, in Hebrew, it says, V'samti makom la'amei Yisrael, untati v'shachein tachtov, and it says Shmuel base, and then it says, V'samti makom la'amei Yisrael, untatihu v'shchein tachtov, but I'm saying I could be that has something to do with also, or that Hashem is telling us that he's making a place. Maybe it could be derived from that also when we're davening to him and praising him, that we should be in one place. I'm not sure.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. This is the Gemara. The Gemara said that how do you know that if you have an established place for davening, that your enemies will fall before you? So the Gemara gave that verse that you just read. That's the verse and the source of how valuable it is to have a set place to daven. But the question is, that's very nice, but what is the logic behind it? What is the reason why we should have the set? So that's what we're discussing. Meaning we know the source in the Gemara. We also know that there's another source in a previous Gemara that showed that Hashem, the God of Abraham, will be in will help you. We saw a source in the previous Gemara as well, that it's very good to have a set place to daven. So we know that if you daven in a set place, number one is the God of Abraham will help you, and number two is that your enemies will fall before you. But the question is, but what is the benefit? What is the not the benefit? What is the reason that Hashem wants us to have a set place? So we know we get a reward for it, but what is the reason to what is the logic behind it? Why should we have a set place? So that's what we're discussing is the logic. But you're right, the pasuk is the source. That pasuk is the source for it. But the question is, so what's the logic? So we just gave a number of reasons. There's a few more reasons that in the Tzlach says a reason that I said yesterday, that the place where you daven, you have your davening makes it holy. So if you go there again, you're davening in a holier place. And so if you have an established place to daven, so that place carries with it an element of holiness, so it becomes a better place to daven in the future because you've davened there numerous times. And the Sfas Emes says a similar thing. He says that it's similar to a minyan. That just like a minyan, you have 10 people davening together, so you have all those prayers together. He says when you daven in the same place, you have a similar idea. It's not exactly the same of a minyan, but you have a similar idea because you have all those prayers in the same place. So it's almost like it has a certain element of davening in a holier place, a holy place where your prayers will be, of course, more accepted and more wanted. So that's we sort of touched on that yesterday. Now the Maharal says that that when you have established place for davening, it's like your dveikus, your connection to Hashem, is more established. you just jump around and have different places where you daven, then it's not a real dveikus, not a real dveikus to Hashem, and therefore, in order to be completely connected to Hashem, if you have a set place, it allows you to have more dveikus. I don't know if that means more because you concentrate better in an established place, or it's simply having the established place. Now, and the final explanation is from the Riyaf, that he explains that going to an established place, it shows that davening is not a burden. And if you just jump and daven, you just daven wherever you are, it's sort of like a burden you want to get rid of. But if you go and you to your established place, it makes it that it's not a burden. So these are some of the reasons. These are the reasons that I found in the commentaries why it's very beneficial. Why a person would, what the reason of davening is, why it benefits your prayer to the extent that you get those blessings that the Gemara says. So ultimately, it boils down to ideas of kavana, and your prayers are more accepted, holiness, and showing that your davening is real and you're connecting to Hashem, and that's basically the idea here. Okay, any thoughts on that? Anyone want to have any questions?
Rabbi,
yes.
Our entire Torah, we're always, and Shulchan Aruch, we're always talking, like the first thing in the Shulchan Aruch, we're talking about the times when we should daven, when we should be. So basically, I think the fact that we're talking about the place that we should be very much ties in with order, that we're supposed to be orderly people. So I think that's really what the bottom line is that we should daven in the place that's showing that respect, and the fact that we're doing it on time and being in the same place, more or less, is the thought. Shukayach.
I think that's a beautiful insight. So, so very nice, very nice. That just the idea of being an orderly person to serve. That in order to serve Hashem properly, we need a certain order, and having an established place. It makes our whole, I guess it directs our whole life to a goal, that we're not just living the day, but we actually have a goal, a long-term goal, and we need to we need to have an order for Yiddishkeit in order to serve Hashem. It sounds like a very nice insight as well. So Yasher Koyach. Okay. Let's see. So we did that Gemara with establishing a place to daven. Then the next Gemara said that greater is the shimush of Torah more than learning Torah. And we brought a pasuk from Malachim. Now it's interesting, and we showed how the way to we describe Elisha is not the student of Eliyahu, but he's the one who poured water on Eliyahu's hands. So that's Now it's interesting that what is Yehoshua called? And I saw this broad from the commentaries that it says in the first pasuk of Yehoshua. Who is Yehoshua? You would think he's called the student of Moshe, right? But the first pasuk in the book of Yehoshua says Meshares Moshe. Hashem told Yehoshua ben Nun the Meshares, the Shamash. That's what he's praised as being. That's his description. That's his bio. He's the Meshares of Moshe. Similar to this idea that the helper in a certain sense is greater than the student, or the idea of helping is a greater idea. The fact that you're meshamish, the Talmud Chacham or the tzaddik, is greater than the learning part of it. Gedoyla shimusha yerser melimuda. Okay, and then we had the next Gemara spoke about davening with a minyan and how Reb Nachman missed shul, and he said they asked him, "Why didn't you come to shul daven with the minyan?" He said, "I wasn't able to," and so we said this has a certain it has a halachic ramification, and that is like, so what does that mean? Are we obligated? How obligated are we to go to shul? And I mentioned to you this amazing halacha that the Alter Rebbe brings because of this Gemara. It seems like it's based totally on this Gemara that even if a person's not sick, but if he's weak, and he doesn't have koyach, it's impossible for him to gather 10 people to him, so he'll daven in his house. So in other words, you don't have to be sick, but if a person is weak, this is the chiddush of this Gemara, that you see Reb Nachman was weak. He doesn't say he was sick. He didn't say choyla ani. He said lo yochilna. I'm not able to come. And Rashi says tosh koichi. I'm weak. So what do we see from here? That if a person is weak, there is a leniency to make a minyan in his house. He doesn't have to go to the shul to make the minyan, even though really a person should go to make a minyan in the shul. But if he's weak, you make a minyan in his house, and if that you can't do, which in this case was tricha milsa, which, as we said yesterday, has two meanings. One of the commentaries, David mentioned the commentary yesterday. It means that it could mean it's too much for me to impose on others to come to me, or the simple meaning is that it's too hard for me to gather a minyan for whatever reason it could be. And that's also mentioned. That's also an accepted reason. But the Gemara says that in such a case, at least daven at the same time that the tzibur, that the community is davening, and that so that's the general halacha to daven at the same time the tzibur is davening, unless they're davening at the wrong time. Like for example, Ma'ariv, a lot of shuls daven early. Then you don't want to daven at the time that they're davening because they're really davening at the wrong time, and there's no leniency for you to daven at that time, even though they have a leniency to daven when they daven so that they don't lose the minyan. But you should daven really at the appropriate time and its correct time and its man. Ben, what would you like to say?
Yeah, yesterday you mentioned something about somebody that drives and stops in a hotel to stay should check if there is a minyan 70 minutes walk in front of him or 18 minutes walk behind him.
Right.
And that was in connection to this Gemara. But I didn't get the rest of it. Meaning
the point
what?
Is,
that he should go further, closer to the, so he doesn't have to go.
No, the point is that how much out of your way are you obligated to go to daven with a minyan? So when you're traveling, what is considered out of your way? It's going backwards.
Yeah.
Going forward is not out of your way. So going forward, you're going in the right direction. So for that, you have to go 72-minute walk. So whatever that is, maybe 3 miles. So you have to travel up to 3-4 miles forward. Backwards, it would be like a little less than a mile. You would have to turn around and go backwards to daven with a minyan. You would have to turn around and go backwards up to a mile. So that's the idea of travel.
So you mean davening at this time or for the future?
No. When you're traveling and you have a minyan.
For the future stay.
No. Yeah, no. So in other words, you're about to stop at a Howard Johnson's, and someone calls you and says there's a minyan, by the way, a few miles forward, and you're tired. You say, you know what? I'm going to come to the minyan. There's a minyan for Ma'ariv at 10 o'clock at night. I was going to stop here in this Howard Johnson's. No, let me go daven. Let me go 4 miles, forward, and I'll daven Ma'ariv with the minyan, and then I'll find the hotel right near there. That's basically what the what it's saying. To go out of your way, it's 200 2,000 amos a mil. and to go in along your way, it's 4 mil. So that's the
All right, thank
that's
you.
the meaning. So what that sounds like is if a person is in their house, out of wherever they go is sort of out of their way. So it would be up to 1 mil. In other words, the halacha talks about traveling because the traveling you can go on your way. But if you're in your house, it sounds like wherever you go would be a little out of your way. So that would be that's what it sounds like. That you would only be obligated to go 1 mil. Yes, Manning.
Rabbi Smith, why is it that certain prayers require a minyan? Is it the tefillos are null and void if they're said, or is it because it would be more effective? Why is it that, like for instance, Kaddish, why is it can't be said with less than 10 Jewish people?
Speak to you another time about that, and I'll reply to you. I wanted to just finish up because we're gonna be having the half hour of Tanya we're gonna be doing now. So I just want to finish one last thing in this Gemara, and then we will start the Tanya. So we mentioned that we turned the page, and we went to Daf Ches Amud Aleph, page 8a, and we said that there is an opportune time to daven, and that's when the tzibur is davening. So even if a person is not able to go to shul, he should try to daven at the time that the community is davening. And the source was Va'anis vilasi l'cha Hashem eis ratzoin. And the source, the meaning of that is it uses a singular word, tfilasi, my tefillah, to you Hashem at the time of an eis ratzon, at an auspicious time. So what that means is that even though you're an individual, but you're davening, and this is talking about David HaMelech, he was davening at the time that's called an eis ratzon. So that's the source that you daven when the tzibur is davening, even though you're not there. In other words, how do you learn it from that verse? Because it speaks about a singular. So because it says it in the singular, therefore you can see it from there. Okay, so it's 10:30.